What's up, guys? We got big trouble in Little China. Let's see what we got. Alright, so what we have here is a crankcase for a side-by-side. Customer brought this to me, and I'll show you where the damage is. There is a hole, rod busted right through that baby. I'll give you guys an up-close and personal look at this. You can see how dinged up it is, where the rod skipped through here, and then you can actually see right there where the rod was pushing up against there, and I think that's the pressure caused this piece to just bust right out. So customer brought it to me, asked if they thought that I could repair it. I do believe that it is repairable because I think we can just sit and stack the beads on top of each other and build this back up. It's quite a common repair with cast aluminum. You guys have seen me do a few cast aluminum repairs on the channel, so we're going to see if we can't get this one built back up. There are a couple challenges that this one is going to give us, and that is, one, it's pretty close to this hole. That makes me a little nervous. The toe of the weld is going to be clear down to here, which is getting pretty close to this hole. I do not want the weld to cross over into this hole, because then we'll have to drill it out, re-tap it, and have to deal with that. If we can stay away from there and not have to do that, that'll make this repair a lot easier. So one of the other complications that this one poses is you've got this machine surface here where the gasket sits. So we've got to build it up past that and then machine that down. When I say machine, I mean using machining equipment to where they would actually put this like in a milling machine and mill this flat. So we're probably going to just do it by hand because I want to show that you can get this smooth enough and flat enough to where you don't have to have a milling machine to make it to where it will seal up. So that's the plan. So I'm going to get all set up here. I'm going to roll the Dynasty out, and we'll see if we can't start getting this build up. I am going to take my ground clamp, and I'm going to clamp it directly to the part. That way it's not arcing through the table. I'm using 1/8 inch tungsten. I'm going to put a little bit of a ball on the end of it, and I'll be using 40-43 TIG rod. Probably start out with 332 and see how that goes. Alright guys, I want to give you an update here. The camera died in the middle of that. So you can see I've got 2 passes done already. So what I'm doing is I'm running a pass on one side, and then I'll flip it over, and then I'll run a pass on the other side. The reason I'm doing that, you can see you kind of get these little voids. It's hard to get your tungsten in there to where it's bleeding over that edge. So that's why I'll run a bead, and then I'll flip it over, and then I'll run a bead, and that way it rolls over both sides and fuses the middle. So that's the plan. So I'm just going to keep making passes, flipping it over, and we'll just keep doing that till we get it filled up, and then I'll give you guys a look. Alright, so you can see we've got a void there. Now, sometimes that just happens because you're trying to build it up on both sides. You're trying to get the whole thing to fuse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my die grinder, and I'm just going to gouge that out until I'm hitting solid material, and then I'll fill it back up. So we'll do that now. Afraid to leave this Alright, so here's what the inside looks like. Hopefully you can see it's pretty piled up there. The outside looks like that. So the only reason we would need to grind that out is if we need the clearance. So now we just got to start grinding it down and dressing it up. So I'm going to let it cool. Once it's cool, we'll start working on that. Okay guys, so I got this all ground out. I am going to polish it up with some Scotch-Brite. I did get this surface ground down just a little bit. You can see I still left it a little high. I didn't want to go too far on that yet, because to put the finishing touches on it, I'm either going to use Scotch-Brite or just a little sanding pad for my die grinder. I figured I'd do this off camera so you guys didn't feel like you were sitting in a dentist chair for 6 hours. I think I'm still going to leave this high. I'm going to focus on getting this surface cleaned up to as close as possible to a machine surface. And we should be able to get there just using our die grinder. So I'm going to keep chipping away at this, and I'll show you guys once I get to that point. Alright guys, so I used my little Scotch-Brite pad here. Cleaned up the inside there. And I cleaned up the surface here. I did use a file, and I just gently ran it back and forth to try to knock that high spot down without having little dips in it. So to try to keep it perfectly flat, that's what I did. And then I also checked it with a straight edge. That should work. There's no reason a gasket shouldn't seal on that surface. So you can get a good enough surface if you're just really slow and really careful and really picky about how it looks. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to repair it to the point where it'll seal with a gasket. So now that we've got that done, we'll get it back to the customer and they can put it back together, get their side-by-side back up and running. I think that's going to wrap this one up. Thanks for watching. See you guys on the next one. Don't you look at me like that. I'm going to get some recording of you, yeah. Payback. Karma, baby.
That is not karma.
Yep. Quit it! I'm going to throw this at you. Quit looking at me. Oh. I can't focus now. Uh-huh.